today, as caution still grips the property market, can you trust the numbers? Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, well, latest post covering finance and property news. The mythology goes, start cutting interest rates and the property market heats up. And of course, we got the RBA cut, although attached to signals that we should not expect more soon. And CoreLogic's hedonic index of prices declared that Sydney now has a rolling monthly growth rate of 0.5%, while Melbourne was up 0.4%. On the other hand, mid-sized capitals like Brisbane and Perth are sitting at the bottom of the list, having been leading the charge until recently. But on the ground, things are much more complex, and many vendors, while still hanging out for strong offers, are being disappointed. And whilst the volume of property listed for sale is tracking higher than last year, there are but few good strong properties, but many dogs, which are either mispriced or of lower quality. And we are still seeing a plethora of ex-investment properties coming onto the market in need of major repair and renovation. And underquoting, although illegal, is still rife. Looking at the most recent weekend, Domain reported a preliminary clearance rate at auctions of 65%, with 1,203 reported sold, based on 1,851 reported auctions, although this does compare with a higher 2,786 properties listed for auction. More were listed this week compared with last week, which was dampened by Melbourne's long weekend and ex-tropical cyclone Alfred. But the difference between reported and listed is interesting and a fundamental issue with the way clearance rates are reported. Generally, agents are keen to report successful auction sales, but are more canny about reporting property that's been passed in or withdrawn. Typically, later data takes the numbers lower. Actually, Domain reported a provisional clearance in Sydney of 69.2%, with 1,183 properties listed, 744 reported, and 515 sold. Now, if you put those sold as a proportion of those listed, then you get a clearance rate of 43.5%. Hardly stellar. Last year, at the same time, the Domain final clearance rate was 66.8%. But on the basis of listed versus sold, it was just 54.5%, which suggests Sydney is dragging the chain this year. Now, in Melbourne, which, as I said earlier, had a quiet week last week due to the long weekend, reported 1,157 properties listed and 559 sold, to give a preliminary Domain clearance of 67.1%. But if you take those sold as a proportion of those listed, you get a 48.3% clearance rate, which does confirm more activity in Victoria following a sluggish 18 months. Again, though, if you go back a year, last year the clearance rate ended up at 60.9% according to Domain, or 55.8% on the alternative way of calculating it, which is higher than this year. My point is this: despite all the hopium from the talking property heads, it's really important to do your homework if you're in the market to buy or even to sell at the moment. And more broadly, as discussed with Edwin, agents are talking properties up with vendors to get the business of listing a home, and often pushing them to go to the auction route, where the agent can charge more for marketing the property. Then they often underquote to tease more people to look at the property, and then try to wrangle the gap between the two prices. Oh, and of course some bring along professional bidders to edge the price up at auction. Now, you may not know, but New South Wales has a fair trading guide, which sets out clearly what an agent can and can't do. There's a link to the PDF in the comments below. And they say an agent is underquoting the selling price of a residential property if they make a statement or publish an advertisement about its price that is less than their reasonable estimate of the property's likely selling price. The Property and Stocks Agents Act of 2002 and the Secretary's guidelines for the property supervision of the business of a licensee, issued, by the way, under Section 32 of the Act, sets out the legal requirements on license holders when making representations about the selling price of residential properties. The underquoting laws were designed to ensure that buyers don't waste money and time on property inspections, getting reports and attending auctions for properties that were likely to be out of their price range. And New South Wales Fair Trading has also developed guidelines to help agents understand the laws relating to underquoting. The guidelines are for informational purposes and aim to assist license holders in complying with their legal requirements. And they went on to say, as an agent, you must include your reasonable estimate of a property's likely selling price in the agency agreement. If the estimate is expressed as a price range, ensure the highest price in a price range does not exceed the lower price by more than 10%. And then they must provide evidence to the seller or prospective seller of how they estimated the selling price or revised selling price. And they need to ensure that the estimated selling price remains reasonable, which means that you possibly need to revise your estimated selling price if there is evidence or circumstances that impacts its reasonableness by notifying the seller of the revised price and amending the agency agreement with the revised estimate. They must also take all reasonable steps to amend or retract advertisements which have a selling price less than the revised estimate, and also maintain records of any statements made about the price while a property is being marketed. And they must also ensure that the supervision guidelines are complied with. So, for example, written procedures are in place to ensure that any sale of comparable property is available, that feedback from potential purchasers are provided, any current or relevant valuations are provided in respect of the property, and the characteristics and features of the property, and also the methods used to market the property and any other available factors that may affect the estimated selling price. And they must also, if required, demonstrate that the difference between the estimated selling price and the actual selling price was reasonable in the circumstances. And they went on to say that agents must not provide a selling price, whether written or in person, less than what you have reasonably estimated as recorded in the agency agreement with the seller. This applies to advertising the property or in any communication with prospective buyers while marketing the property. And they must not use any statements such as offers above or offers over an amount, or any symbols or words that could underquote or obscure a property's estimated value, such as by adding plus to a particular price. And they must not make a statement about the last bid accepted in an auction if it was a vendor bid, which is a bid by the auctioneer on behalf of the seller, where the residential property or rural land was passed in at auction. The exception is when the statement clearly indicates the bid was a vendor bid. And they conclude that underquoting is an offence under the Act, and agents can be fined up to $22,000 for failing to comply. Agents may also lose their commission and fees gained from selling underquoted property. But of course, the question is whether this is being policed adequately. And certainly on current evidence, the answer is, unfortunately, no. So the bottom line is this, that there is more going on around property sales and listings than many realise. And the spin from the media, many linked to the property sector directly, of course, is not telling the full story. And you can get more about this on my rant with Edwin tomorrow. Now, if you're buying your home in Sydney's contentious market, you don't need to stand alone. This is the time you need to have Edwin Almeida from Brisbane Property Consultants standing alongside you. Buying a property is both challenging and adversarial. The vendor has a professional on their side. Emotions run high, price discovery and price transparency are hard to find, and then there's the wasted time and financial investments that you make. Edwin understands your needs, so why not engage a licensed professional to stand alongside you? With RPC, you know you have experience, knowledge, and master negotiators looking after your best interests. So shoot, Ribbon an email at info@ribbonproperty.com.au. And if you use the promo code DFAWTW/Martin, you can get a 10% discount offer. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.